All right, we're live. The Wi-Fi gods have connected us. So I'm here in Philadelphia with Emily Costello, who is one of my favorite hairdressers. She's got a lot to share, a lot of passion, a lot of creativity. She's been doing some strong creative work on her model. What was your name? Was it like
Laura?
Laura, on her model Laura. Laura's going to have a really bold look. You can see she's got this strong undercut. And you're going to be doing some fun kind of bowly textured stuff on the top. Mm-hmm. All right, Emily. So let's get into this haircut. So starting right up here in the front, and what are we going to have happening now?
All right, so with Laura, we sat down about 2 days ago before we talked about the color, and we were like, all right, I was like, what is your style like? What are you looking to do? What kind of favorite things have you been wearing, et cetera, et cetera? And Laura was like, pretty much like a lot of like 90s grunge boy outfits and haircuts. So I was like, how about we do a really cool little bowl cut, like a modern bowl cut. So that's what we went through here, and I scissor over combed all of the underneath of Laura's hair here, brought it up just a little bit in the back because I really want to work that disconnection, and then we're going to go through the top, create a really nice strong shape, and add some softness through the crown.
All right, so let's start here. You're known for doing some really strong, I love that you call it weird and wonderful. I've noticed you use that hashtag, and yes. I think it kind of describes what you're doing. It's people who want stuff out of the norm.
Yep.
It's not just, what's on trend or what's coming from Hollywood.
Yep.
So when you find a model or a client that's open to that, do you do that often? You talk to them about their personal style. How do you find these kind of, how do you get it to fit just right?
I would say for the kind of haircuts that I love to do and for the kind of clients that I have, it's more so catering to their lifestyles as opposed to catering to the current trends. So I sit down with every single client, whether it's someone I've been cutting, doing their hair for 6 years or 6 weeks, and we discuss their interests. What have they been into lately? What do they love to do? What kind of clothing do they wear? And then we kind of go at it and say, hey, okay, cool, what kind of haircuts or inspiration have you been into lately? What's your new favorite thing this week? And then we work a haircut in that way.
All right, so technically now you're working, was it basically kind of like a horseshoe on the top and you scissor over combed everything around that like last night or this morning?
Yep.
And now you're just, how are you creating this kind of bang or this bowl bang?
So we went through, and Laura already had a pre-existing undercut. So typically with undercuts, I find that people tend to cut them a little bit too low. So whenever I'm working with an undercut, I like to, at least if I know that I'm going to go through and create a really strong shape on top of it, I like to make sure that my undercut is nice and balanced first before I go ahead and unbalance it. So we went through, created a horseshoe shape at the crown. I scissor over combed, honestly mostly more on a horizontal, worked a really nice square scissor over comb up through to remove all of this hair that was already there and cleaned it all up before I decided that I was going to create a round shape.
Great, Emily. So if you guys have questions, I see lots of our community tuning in. I knew everybody would want to come in and support Emily. She's been such a great part of the hairbrain community and the craft hairdressing movement. If you have questions for her about the haircut, about anything at all, I'm sure that she'd love to answer them. We've got a great crowd. Maybe Kelly, you can show everyone that's here. We love the Philly hair scene because it's so supportive. There's lots of cool young hairdressers. They all seem to be connected, and even some of us that aren't that young, right, Patty? Yeah, we're in the mix too. And it's just a great place to be, and we'd love everyone to feel connected to it. We'd love to hear your questions. So I'm monitoring right here, so if any questions come in, it's not that I'm checking my text messages. Last week somebody got offended that I had my phone. I thought that was pretty funny. They thought I was like reading emails like while we were doing it, but I'm actually looking for questions and giving it right back to Emily. All right.
Real quick, can you go through the section that you just took?
Sure. So I'm working a round shape. So a round shape starts shorter in the front and it elongates as it moves towards the back of the head. So I am taking more horizontal sections through the top because I want to redistribute the weight into that shape. So if I was working more in a diagonal, it would be a little bit more fluid and a little bit softer, but I really want to
accentuating the round shape.
Yes, exactly.
So do you generally try to work like your lines parallel to the sections that you're taking?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's just good classic hairdressing, even when you're working creatively.
Would you say it's like about a 1 inch section or maybe
I would
half
say
inch?
about a half an inch. I typically take sections depending on the pre-existing density and texture of the hair type. I think everybody subsections a little bit differently because everybody's hair density is so different.
Right, I mean, you would be able to see that guide clearly and control the hair
Exactly.
in general. Let me get out of the light there. And so we can see there's obviously a pretty bold color here, and we'll get a chance to talk about that a little bit in a minute. But so if anyone has questions about the color, and we'll get to see that as it dries off as well. So Emily, tell us a little bit about your new salon. I think you've got a month-old baby here, huh?
I do have a month-old baby. It's pretty exciting.
We keep you up late at night?
You know what? Honestly, I don't know. Steven is here, my lovely boyfriend, so he can vouch for that.
Yeah.
I would say more so it wakes me up at night. Like I wake up with ideas and things, and I'm like, oh, I want to do this differently, or I want to do this differently. I truly couldn't do it without the gang. We have a really awesome team. They're super supportive. Anytime that I need anything at any given moment, they're all the first ones to, separately text me, like thinking that they're being the favorite one. And then I'm like, oh, I got all of you texting me at the same time, which is really wonderful. They're just really amazing. And I feel like it's going to be a really cool, we're going to have a really cool first year.
Tell us a little bit about the neighborhood you're in and how you ended up choosing this. I think a lot of times when people want to open a salon, they think, where should I do it?
Totally. So we are in a section of Philly technically called, I guess it's Queen Village. This particular street, 4th Street, is called Fabric Row. So in Philly, this is where all of the tailors and seamstresses had their shops originally. So when I was looking for places to go, didn't really feel particularly drawn further north, and I didn't really want to go too south. But I thought that Fabric Row was really cool because it still had a lot of history, and it still felt very much so true to Philly. So this building that we're in right now is over 100 years old. All of the hardware floor, all that you're standing on is the original floor that, was built with this building. And
I'll be careful where I step.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah. It's awesome too because you can, it's nice to have that heritage here of seamstress and fabric cutting. It's craft oriented, which is awesome.
100%.
All right, let's get back to your technique. So this is starting to work back into the crown.
Yep.
And what are you thinking? What are you working on now?
I'm just continuing to put my shape in there. I really want to make sure that everything is nice and strong, and then I will start going through the top to remove some weight where I feel
So
like
did you start off kind of bringing it kind of squarely forward?
Yes.
And then as you got back to the back, you let it kind of fan out a little bit?
Yep.
It's kind of like a nice trick to get roundness, isn't it?
And I typically work with everybody's head shape is so different. So I keep in mind that yes, I cut my shape with my section, and yes, I have a desired outcome. But if there is someone who has a slightly more round head or a slightly more square head, and all of these things that come together, I try to make sure that I'm exactly making up for those spots, or making sure that it's working in balance with the head shape.
Great.
I think
So
that's
you're
the
kinda,
thing that makes it really suitable.
Bringing it forward, and then what happens is it just naturally starts to round out, doesn't it? And you can kind of let that hair expand. So you're working all the way back to the high point where you scissor over comb. So you talked a little bit about undercutting before,
Yep.
and I feel like your undercut has gone up to like the middle of the round of the head, so it's pretty high.
Yes.
Yeah, and so you deliberately, I think, when I was learning about undercutting, which has been around a really long time, we used to say keep it below the round of the head if you want it to disappear.
Yep.
Put it above the round of the head if you really want to see it.
Exactly.
So I think that's a great little tip, because if you don't think about it and you get one too much, then you might get something you don't want.
Exactly.
So here you obviously want to see that there's some short hair.
Absolutely. And I always talk about, I do a lot of undercuts, and I have a lot of clients that have a lot of hair. So the number one reason for an undercut is practicality. It removes a lot of the weight, it removes a lot of the density, so it creates something that can help all the rest of the hair sit on top of it and have a place to live in. But I also really love when it's a focal point of the haircut.
Yeah, in this case, you're going beyond practicality.
Absolutely.
You're trying to do something weird and wonderful and strong.
Exactly.
And obviously she can wear it. I'm assuming that the tattoo
Sorry, guys.
here, there's probably, I haven't seen what's underneath, but I'm imagining there's more.
A lot.
You're not a conservative, you're not a conservative girl.
No, not whatsoever.
And what do you do
With
for a
your
living?
hair.
I work with tattoo artists. I do personal assistance work.
Okay, cool. Are you going to become a tattoo artist? Or?
Oh, no.
No, so you're more helping them like build their brands and
Yeah,
stuff?
I like organizing other people's lives.
Oh, cool. We need to talk. I need a personal assistant. Big time.
We have some questions.
Okay,
Yeah.
Patty.
Bring 'em in.
Jonathan Cons says, it's super rad. What determines your elevation?
What determines my elevation? So it depends on how soft of an outcome I want versus how, I don't want to say harsh, but how strong of an outcome that
How
I want.
defined?
Yes, exactly. Defined
How
is a really
defined,
good
yeah.
word. If I'm, I can always make something softer. So I tend to start a lot of my elevation a lot lower because I know it's going to be stronger. And I also know that I can go through and create a softer outcome by elevating and removing.
That's a great question, and I think
Right.
generally, what we always say about elevation is higher is lighter.
Yep.
I think with haircutting, if you can break things down to really basic rules, then you're free to be creative. And higher is lighter, lower is weightier and more defined. So you were kind of almost touching her forehead, so you wanted to get some definition this way.
Exactly.
But now you're starting to layer.
Yep.
But you're letting the corner drop out in the front?
Yes.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that.
So if I know that I'm going to go through and rework the front, or if I know that I'm going to go through and do something a little bit different with the end shape, I a lot of the times will leave my outline where it is so that I have the ability to go back through and redefine or clean it up or change it how I decide to change it. If not, I can always go back through right at the very end, pick it up and connect it to the rest of my layering.
It's so interesting how all the basic classics of haircutting, when you combine them together, you can make creative things, because that
Absolutely.
whole concept, if you cut a bob line in the back
Yep.
and you want to layer it, you use the same idea.
Exactly.
You put your line in at a low elevation and then you square layer it off the back. So you kind of just flip that around and put it on the top of her head. Like this was your
Exactly.
baseline, and now you're layering behind that baseline, but keeping the corner right here will keep the definition on the bang or the fringe.
100%. And I say it all the time, whenever I teach classes or whenever I'm, sharing a new technique. Creative haircutting, I feel like, is kind of a weird term because it's not like you're doing anything that's crazy and new. You are just taking a lot of the strong techniques.
going bold with it.
Exactly. And just matching things up, putting different shapes together, working it in a different way with respect to, a more traditional technique, if you will.
And Patty, you'll let us know if there are any other questions coming in. I saw a lot of love coming in, which is great, because we want people to appreciate strong work. We know that it's not for everyone. We're not saying this is super commercial for everyone to have. But when you're a
She's not a
hairdresser,
client. She's not paying in
yeah,
any
but when you
way.
are a hairdresser, sometimes you do need to push yourself. That's how you get better. So what's it like every day here with your own clientele? Have you really fostered an extremely creative clientele, or do you do lots of long layers too?
Well, here's the thing, is that I think my biggest secret, is that I have a very versatile clientele. I have a lot of creative haircuts for sure. Like I do a lot of really fun short fringes. I do a lot of, really cool little bobs, et cetera, et cetera. But I have a lot of clients that are, I have like all my older moms that come in, and they want a really cool little pixie. And I have a lot of clients with super long hair that trust no one else, to cut the centimeter of hair off of their head. And I feel like that truly is what keeps me a strong hair cutter, because I can fine tune all of the basics in all of those haircuts.
It keeps you fulfilled too, to do things diverse.
Exactly.
I've been lucky in my career that at certain points I've worked at advanced academies and just done creative haircuts all the time.
Yep.
And the truth is, after a while, you get bored.
Well, and
Like,
your
you start-
creativity starts to.
Well, and then you start to
be
think,
sad.
well, could I even make it in a salon?
Yep.
Like, I don't, you have all these different skill sets. So I think diversity is the key.
Yep.
When you're doing creative stuff, to also do classic stuff. And, I bet you're doing lots of different things on a daily basis.
Yes.
Okay, great. Let's hear some questions, Patty. We've got some stuff coming in.
Cassandra wants to know if you're using a stationary guide.
Am I using a stationary guide? Yes, I'm using it. I pulled one section straight up through the middle. I'm doing more of a convex, I would say, flat layer. And then I would say 2 or 3 sections, and then right around at this round of the head here, I just slightly over-directed a little bit towards the middle.
So is your goal to keep it kind of square, or are you trying to make it a little bit more concave?
I
longer in
want
the corners,
the middle to be a little bit more square, because I feel like, now that I'm looking at the haircut in general, when I go through to take this corner a little bit shorter, I have a particular feeling that I might go through and relayer, but I like to leave a corner just to be safe.
Yeah,
And then I
that's,
can go
in
through and
general,
take it away.
I mean, I think that's what, when people talk about wet hair cutting, it's about putting in a basic shape.
Yes.
And actually building the corners, even though you might reduce them later.
Yes.
So you're kind of, I think we used to call them like safety points,
Yep.
or, you know, so you're keeping a little extra weight along the round of the head there by over-directing.
Correct.
Awesome, thanks for the question, Cassandra. And again, we'd love to hear questions from people, and I'm sure there's people watching from all over the world. If you just tuned in, we're in Philly. This is our Philly hairdresser crowd. Let's see the crowd. Say hi, guys. Yeah, it's a great crowd here. All the hairdressers here are kind of connected and do a lot of fun stuff together. Great town for hairdressing, and Emily's just opened a new salon here in town, which is exciting. And tell us a little bit about the name, because it's really just called X.
It is really just called X.
Yeah, it's very, that's what they say, punk as fuck? Or what? Is
Exactly.
that appropriate? Can I get away with that?
You're gonna get some comments.
Oh,
Oh, risky. When I was
it's punk as heck
That-
to call your salon
Oh,
X.
darn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, heckle. When I was looking at names, I definitely didn't want to have my name on everything. I didn't want it to be like Emily Costello, haircuts by, blah, 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 blah. And I hate that. I feel like, I don't know.
It feels a bit old at
To
this
each
point,
their
right?
own.
Yeah.
And then I started looking at other names and nothing fit. And I was having a really hard time finding something that I thought would belong and be appropriate for kind of the goals and the visions that I had. And then I was like, man, what would be a really cool, simple name that would kind of cover, you know, everything. And I started sitting down and thinking about things, and I was like, what about
Before you
X?
cut that, can we take a look at that section?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so layered everything through the top,
Yep.
bringing it up, keeping weight in the corners. Now
Yep.
you're coming through kind of on a diagonal.
Coming through on a
Are you getting this
diagonal,
to look at the corner?
just to look at the corner and see what's going on in there.
I'm learning.
That's right.
I'm learning.
AJ wants to know if there's a product in the hair to assist the cut.
There is just a little bit of Ever by Reverie. Just
Yeah,
a
so the
little
question was, is there a product in the hair to assist with the cut? And Emily says the product is?
bit. Ever by Reverie. It's an oil.
And Stephen wants to know which shears you're using.
Whew, these are the Hikari Cosmos.
Nice scissor there,
They're
classic.
really
I think
nice.
every precision hair cutter should own a pair at some point.
Absolutely. I'm just checking this corner as well.
And Taylor wants to know if this will be able to be styled in different manners.
Absolutely. I 100% pride myself on every client being able to wear their hair super versatilely. If that's a word. Versatility. Versatility.
You know, I used to work with
Everywhere
a
they
hairdresser.
want,
She had the best word. She
Whatever
used to
you
call
want.
it, I worked with a hairdresser early in my career. She was from China, and English was her second language, and she had the best word ever. She called it reversatility.
There you go.
She used to say, all our clients, it'll be very reversatile. And I just thought that was amazing. Reversatility.
I love that.
It's like the collection.
And
Okay, so put in the baseline,
Yep.
layered it, then you came through diagonally to check the corners. Now
Yep.
what's happening?
Now I'm just checking my shape in the front to make sure that everything's nice and balanced.
The colors, you can see it's starting to dry off. It's
The color is
beautiful.
awesome.
So come up and talk a little bit about the color. It's Emily as well, yeah?
Yep, Emily 1 and Emily 2.
Emily, tell us your full name?
Oh, hi, I'm Em Breslin.
And Em works here at Cultivate X or X, and she did the color. So she's going to talk a little bit about the color.
I did the color. We wanted it to be kind of more fun and DIY looking, but still really beautiful and somewhat professional. Went through today and tweaked some things. I did more sectional coloring. I did a purple, a blue, and then a little bit of green in that bang area. It's by Kenra. Laura already had a lot of blue on her hair with a good, healthy, natural root. So the other day we went in and bleached out that root and yeah, put in some fun colors.
Awesome, thank you. So lots of love coming in, of course. Frank Mussolino has joined us, so now it's officially Hairbrain Live. And yes, I think Frank has seen every single one. I don't know if he's missed any, he'll have to say. But have you met Frank before?
No, I haven't.
Frank's awesome. He owns a salon in New Jersey called Craft.
Oh, awesome.
He's a great guy. And yes, Frank will be at IBS. We've got a booth, a main stage, and a teach-in. And there's also the collective is going to be there. So there'll be, the whole craft hairdressing movement will be at IBS. Absolutely.
All right.
Let's get back into the haircut.
So I'm just going to go through and bring my corners up on each side just a little bit before I start drying it and refining it. And I just want to take a peek and see what's going on over here.
Katie Perkins says hello. Hey, Katie.
Hi, Katie.
You know what, Katie? We're going to get down to Florida and we want to do a hair brain live with you. Yeah, it's getting too cold up here in the Northeast, so we're going to come down to Florida.
Absolutely.
So be ready. We're going to mob Florida.
And the pool.
Yes.
So now you're kind of letting it expand a little bit and checking. So first, those are the areas that you were kind of over-directing and
Yup.
keeping the weight and now kind of fine-tuning it.
Fine-tuning it just a little bit, and I know I'm going to do the majority of the fine-tuning after it's dry, but I love to make sure that my shape is nice and balanced and stable before I get in there and even think about doing anything else.
Let's talk about wet and dry hair cutting. So you started pretty wet.
Yep.
You haven't re-wetted at all.
Nope.
You've just kind of put your shape in and you're letting it dry off intentionally?
Yep, and I typically do. I like to work wet to dry. I feel like it's really nice, especially with clients that maybe aren't going to do a whole lot to their hair styling wise, but because then they can take a second and see what it's doing and see what the shape is doing. And then I can kind of adjust as it's drying and go from there.
Awesome. So you're starting to think now, is there more wet cutting to do or are you just kind of
No,
basically getting a feel
I
for
think
it?
that's it. I'm just getting a feel for it.
Okay.
But so far so cute.
Okay, so what are you thinking about in terms of blow drying? How will you approach that?
Oh man, I'm a really lazy blow dryer.
Me too.
Yep, Kelly, I don't want to make you more than you said on this. I'm just going to use my handy dandy little mini Denman brush.
The mini Denman brush.
Mini Denman and go from there. First I'm going to turn the power on.
Any particular reason why you go with the mini?
I like it for little haircut, little brush.
Little haircut,
You
little
know?
brush. Okay, good. Excellent.
They want your Instagram name.
Oh, my Instagram name. Oh, it's Costello, which is my last name, and X Cult. And then the shop's Instagram is all Cultivate X.
Awesome. So if you want to follow Emily on Instagram, it's Costello X Cult, and then the salon is Cultivate X. What's the Cultivate?
So when we were sitting down, or when I was sitting alone in my room at about 3 a.m., thinking about our social media and all of our branding, I was like, what would be a really cool word that kind of unites everything together, puts all the pieces in one place, and cultivate was the word that I thought of. And Cultivate X, that's how our...
So is it officially part of the name, or is it just for Instagram?
Just for our social media.
Yeah, because to me, I've only known about it from social media, so
Yep.
to me, I thought the salon Cultivate X.
Nope.
But it's just X. That's
just
more
regular
punk.
X.
More punk.
Right.
So if someone Googles it, they just put X in, and you know when it pops up first, you've made it,
That's right.
right?
That's the plan.
All right, so tell us about the blow drying. What is the plan here?
Oh, is there ever really one? Yes, with the blow drying.
So you're not much of a blow dryer then?
No.
Okay, fair
I do
enough.
because I have to.
I'm not either.
I do love my flat brush though. I do love my.
So you
do
mostly
love the
use
brush.
flat brushes, Denman brushes,
Yep.
and you do wrap drying.
Yep,
Just kind of pushing the hair around.
I love a good wrap dry.
Yeah. Do you rely a lot on a flat iron then, or do you feel like you get what you need?
Funny story. I thought for the longest time that I didn't actually need to own a flat iron because I never used one on clients. And then this past year, I rediscovered the flat iron. So I was like, oh,
Yeah.
everyone needs a little smoothing. Just make this a little bit nicer. So
You
I
know,
do have one now.
Strangely, I can remember a time in the early 90s when we didn't really use flat irons. And then we moved into flat ironing everything.
Yep.
And then we really, really moved away from it. And I haven't touched one, I don't even know, in a few years. But I just got a new one.
Oh,
and I'm
okay.
excited to actually start flat ironing again because it's been so long. I don't even use a brush most of the time. I just use my hands.
Yep.
But I got this new iron, and I'm so excited to use it. So if you see some really straight flat iron hair coming out
Well,
from
now it's
me,
Gerard, yep.
yeah, you'll know it's me. Yeah. So at this stage, do you start thinking about what you're going to do to the hair dry? Do you have a
Yes.
plan?
Absolutely, and I typically start thinking about that stage before I even before the hair dryer even goes on.
Yeah.
Because when I'm working, I want to make sure that I'm pushing the hair in the direction that I want it to go. I'm thinking about, do I leave a little bit of wave? Do I really try to work it out? Am I going to use the flat iron?
Awesome.
That's where I'm
I
at.
think we got another question for you, Emily. Patty, let's hear the question.
Christy wants to know, do you work with fringe area if you're supposed to tell?
Okay, so we have a question coming in from Christine. She wants to know any advice you have for working on bangs or fringes when there's calyx.
Ooh, man. I feel like that's all of my clients. I would say start your sectioning section very tiny sections. Think about the cowlick, think about what you need to make up for in the hair. A lot of the times, truthfully, my clients have crooked bangs that are, that appear straight, but they're cut a little bit shorter on one side, or they're left a little bit longer on one, just to make up for any weirdness that might be happening. The number one thing I hear from clients is that they have weird cowlicks, so that they can't have bangs. And I think that's a really poor excuse. I think that a lot of times hairstylists are just scared to try and do it. There have definitely been times where I've been like, oh, I got this, I totally got this, and then I go to cut up, someone's bangs, and I'm like, haha, nope, didn't have that at all, but just kidding. But then you play it cool and tell them that they're, we're gonna do something really interesting and different for your look today.
Yeah.
And they're usually all about it.
So a couple different things, right? You can obviously help educate them about blow drying and how to care for it.
100%.
I remember, I don't know who said it, but somewhere early in my career, when it came to cowlicks and stuff, someone told me, keep it long enough that it doesn't matter, or short enough that it doesn't matter.
100%, yep.
It's that in-between length where it just
so
matters,
yep.
where it just sticks straight up. Yeah.
Or I think people tend to take a lot of weight out of the fringe right away, and I feel like that is often, sometimes you need it to hold itself down. I feel like you jump the gun and are like, oh, I'm going to take my texturizing shears right to this and soften everything, and that's not necessarily the case.
I have a question about the color. After bleaching, did you tone the hair before you applied the Fashion Kendra color?
I did. I usually like to do a little bit of pre-toning. She had a lot of yellow left in her root area. I went in with, it's called Fabuloso. It's a platinum. It's a purple additive. You can pre-tone with it. It didn't do much though, to be honest. So I actually went back in, re-bleached, changed my plan entirely, went in today and did the color zoning.
We've heard a lot about that Fabuloso recently. Is that something that you use often, or was it something you were just trying out?
No, I have the platinum. I really love it. It's great for blondes. We can create shampoos with a little bit of it in there to kind of help tone at home. Something I recommend for blondes is using purple shampoos.
Cool. Awesome.
And
awesome.
one more about the color. When you flat iron, when Emily's flat ironing it, do you find that it does fade the color? I mean, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, I feel like that's with all fashion colors. They get a little bit lighter within the hot tools, but I actually like to use a hot tool after doing my colors because it might fade it a tad bit, but I also feel like the heat helps seal it in as well.
Are you doing a lot of these kind of vivid colors on your clients, or is it just kind of a special one-off? Obviously, you've got some pretty bright hair yourself.
Yeah.
So does that help?
Yeah, it does help. For a while, I was getting a lot of purple, girls who wanted purple hair, but I do a lot of these fun colors, but it's important to tell people that, it's not only what I do. I like to do a lot of beautiful, natural colors as well, but these colors seem to be not going anywhere. They've been pretty popular for some time now. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's great. Anything that brings clients into the salon is good. Right? Any kind of trend that brings people into the salon, and the more diversity, the better. So I love when you walk into a salon and you've got a vivid pink and purple next to a classic one-length bob on naturally gray hair.
Yep.
That's when I know I'm in a cool place with diversity.
So true.
All right, so tell us a little bit about the idea behind the ironing. Is there any special pattern? It seems like you just cut it the same way you cut it.
Same way I cut it,
Yep.
and I like to take it on a little bit more of a diagonal just because I feel like it softens it a little bit more. But I typically, any hot tools are used to complement the haircut. I'm not trying to hide the haircut. I think that the haircut is the strongest by itself.
And back to that question that came earlier, did you think about the heat? Are you on full heat, or did you go a little lower, worried about...
I'm on like medium heat level.
Yeah.
And I feel like most of the pastel clients or the fashion color clients, they are going to, they don't wash their hair that often anyway. So I might be flat ironing their hair at this very moment, but they're not going to wash their hair again for 10 days sometimes.
Yeah, that's probably
Or
good
ever.
advice. When people get real vivid colors. And I can remember in the early 90s when we first were doing, I keep talking about the early 90s, but it's true.
It's relevant.
Everything's really
Haircut
coming
right now.
back.
Yeah.
We were doing so many vivid colors back then with the Manic Panic and the Rainbow and Crazy Color. And it's when people really first stopped shampooing their hair, at least in my life, It was like you went from shampooing every day with herbal essences to people telling their clients, don't shampoo, don't shampoo. And they would be like, what? Yeah.
I know, and then we always have clients ask, and all of us, I feel like, are the worst. Like,
How often do you shampoo your
I'm like,
hair?
I shampoo my hair every 4 14 to 20 days roughly, and they're like, oh, that's disgusting. And I'm like, yeah, well, you know. I'm trying
During
to make you look
Mercury
nice.
retrograde, I'll shampoo my
Well,
hair.
you know, I'll do when there's a full moon, but not
I mean, you may-
necessarily like.
Well, let's just be clear. I mean, you're wedded and things like that. You just won't necessarily do the act of applying
Absolutely.
good shampoo.
Oh, yeah, we always have people that get very offended when we talk about not shampooing. Like, oh my God, how can you
Yeah,
not
it
shampoo?
does get wet, but
Yeah.
just the act of lathering.
That's why dry shampoo is so amazing.
Yeah, that's
There
the
you
best
go.
thing ever.
Dry shampoo is my
Exactly.
life.
That's your life. Keeps the color vibrant,
Oh
right?
yeah, absolutely.
All right, Patty, let us know if we've got any more great questions coming in.
Well, Caroline wants to know if there are multiple ways to style this cut.
Yes, absolutely. I would say once I get in there and start working these corners a little bit, you can wear this haircut, you know, more parted to one side. You could slick it back. You could wear it wavy. You could put it into a, you know, tiny little top knot when it gets a little bit longer. You could let the sides come in. You could work a little bit of a clay through it. It depends on what your end goal is.
So different product in different direction. You can go to one side, you can go up. This kind of works into like a pompadour kind of shape too.
Exactly.
Yeah, she can
100%.
straight back.
Straight back.
Straight back.
Any
But
way
specifically for refining the haircut, it really helps to do it this way, huh?
Yep, exactly.
Looking good. It's really getting that like oil on water effect now with the color. You know, the pet.
That's
the
so
different,
trendy.
Yeah.
It's so trendy,
Those
yeah.
different oil on water colors.
All right, let me get a better angle here.
I'm gonna switch my comb.
Okay.
All right, so going in now for the dry refining. So why switch combs?
Well, this tiny little comb I love for cutting, but my bigger YS Park, I really like the teeth for refining because
Yeah.
I'm going to take, I'm softening now, so I'm going to
Give
go
us one
through.
here.
So it's a bit wider, less tension, less pull on the hair,
100%.
and you can kind of work a little bit more fluidly,
Absolutely.
as opposed to kind of working in such small, direct movements.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. Great, guys. So Emily's coming in for her refining stage now.
People are
And
asking Aaron to smile more.
Aaron, yeah, well, he's just a miserable prick, isn't he? No, he's actually one of the nicest guys.
Sandy has asked 2 times, what are your favorite shears?
What are your favorite
Oh
shears?
man, well this is like a really sensitive question right now because I have been using the HB Pros, the B Max, which are so awesome, and they're definitely like the biggest shear
I
I've
did
used
not
in
ask her
my-
to say that.
No, it's so true.
I did not.
They're definitely like the biggest shear that I've been using, and I didn't think that I would ever go back to using anything that was.
Well, they're not that big. These are
For
just
me, I feel like I use
5.5.
like tiny little 4.5. You
Yeah.
know, tiny little guys.
These guys here. They're just 5.5. Look, they're hardly even any bigger than that
My
one.
whole hand is like the entire family. He's like, they're fine. They're the exact same size. It's fine. I feel like I really love those, but the Hikaris really fit a little bit more similarly to how my NYX felt. So I used NYX for a really long time, and I would have to say that the Hikaris are definitely coming in at a more of like a close second. But now I'm like, oh god, do I have to use more than one? Do I have to use more than one pair now?
Yeah.
Can I get in there?
Makes it fun.
Is that
Keeps it interesting.
allowed?
Absolutely. I'll sometimes use 4 or 5 different on one haircut.
feel like
Just to
that
keep
stressed me
myself
out.
interested.
Tell us real quick about the section you just took to.
Yep, so Laura and I discussed earlier that she typically parts her hair moving towards my right. So I knew if I was going to take any sort of smaller underneath section and leave a taller section, that I would create a shorter guide where it naturally falls anyway, because that's what it's going to do, that's where Laura's going to push it, and then everything else will fall on top and lay really nicely. So slightly diagonal.
So coming kind of across the grain, like you kind of
Exactly.
put in the train track, so to speak.
Exactly.
It was very like literal, and now you're coming across it like on a bias.
100%.
Yeah, giving more movement, softness. And now you're point cutting.
Just a little bit into this corner underneath, and what I think I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take a peek at it, and I might leave the top just untouched to veil over the shorter pieces.
So not super deep with the point cutting, just on the ends of the hair.
Just on the very ends.
I mean, interestingly enough, sometimes that makes haircuts look even cleaner rather than shredded, you
Yes.
know? If you go in deep point cutting, you get more texture and separation.
100%.
But sometimes that shallow point cutting, it just actually makes the lines look cleaner,
Yep.
makes the haircut last and look sharper.
And I think people tend to become really aggressive with the point cutting, and they don't know why they're doing it.
It's kind of like you get on this like little rhythm and you kind of
Yeah.
just keep going.
And you're like, here I am, I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
Point cutting forever.
Hughes wants to know if the hairbrand shoes would be for sale at the IBS.
Yes, we'll have the hair-brained shears, scissors at all the trade shows. We'll be
Come
at
say hi
IBS
to
and
us.
ISSE please come say hi to us. We'll have a full booth this year at IBS. We're really excited. Last year we didn't do a booth because we had so much going on, but this year we've got enough manpower to have a full booth with all of our tools and scissors and everything fun going on. Same thing at ISSC. We're going to have a full booth with anything you can buy online from Hairbrained. We'll have at the shows. So come and say hi, and we'll also have a selfie booth with our partners, Beauty Changes Lives, which is a great foundation for giving scholarships to young hairdressers. So we'll be sharing the space with them. You can learn about donations to help people get into the craft, because they help pay for people to go to beauty school. It's called Beauty Changes Lives, and that's going to be exciting. And of course, we'll have a teach-in at both events. Let's get back to the haircut.
So I'm just taking the longest sections that are closest to the crown here, elevating them slightly and softening the guideline that I created when I was layering. But I love how all the longer pieces are sitting really awesomely on top of those shorter pieces.
Awesome. How's that feeling? Yeah?
Really good.
Good?
Yeah.
Have you had anything kind of bowly before? Is that something new for you?
Not so much bowly, but I've definitely had a lot of like shorter, like pixie cuts over the years. But this is definitely the most unique and interesting takes on, you know, the shorter cuts that
Weird
I've
and
ever
wonderful.
had.
It's weird and wonderful, right?
Yep, totally.
Where did that, I love that term. I think I saw it I think when David Bowie passed away or something, I saw, Emily, you used it or posted it somewhere. What does that mean to you, weird and wonderful?
I don't know.
I like it.
feel
You
a lot
you gotta believe in
I have a
stuff.
lot of thinking too around 3:30 a.m.
Yeah.
Roughly on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I tend to be up the latest.
But what is it? Because it really spoke to me, because I get it. Listen, not everybody is conventional. Not everybody wants to be the same.
No.
It doesn't mean that you're crazy or whatever, but you want to be different. You want to be weird and wonderful. So, like, what does it mean to you?
To me, oh man, I mean, I could turn into a sad sap and be like, I just have always felt this way, and but it's just partially
Let's
true.
not be a sad sap.
No, let's not be a sad sap. I definitely feel like there are a lot of people who, hair is such an expression of self, and I think that gets lost a lot of the time because you have a lot of people who maybe go to the hairdresser and they ask for something, and the hairdresser, doesn't know or is too scared to do it, and I feel like that's not the person that I wanted to be. So for me, weird and wonderful is having someone come in, and I've never had someone be like, that's too weird, or like, oh, you know what, let's rethink that, like, let's talk about that a little bit more. I really want to cater it to the person, and I really want them to feel like it's, super individualized to them, and that alone will make a lot of people feel really wonderful. So that's kind of the thought process.
So bringing out the
behind that.
uniqueness in each person, that's kind of the
Exactly.
wonderful part.
And not telling people that they need to fit into one box or another.
Yeah, right on. Awesome. So Patty, let us know if you see any other great questions coming in or anybody that want to give a shout out to.
Zach Snyder says you're an incredible assistant.
Oh, I love them.
Oh, thank you, Zach. I was once told that, many, many years ago, but then they told me you were a terrible stylist, terrible teacher, and terrible at everything else, so you should go back to being an assistant. Yeah. But yeah, just in all seriousness, the way that I was trained, the assistant was part of the service. So you would stand in there, you would hold sections, you would dust actively, and I think it was a great way to learn the soft skills and learn about body position, because I had to really anticipate where the stylist was going to be. And it also keeps you from getting bored. When you work in the salon and you're an assistant and you have downtime and you're not involved in the service, what do? You stand around and wait for someone to come in to shampoo, where I would rather, get involved in the service. So in all seriousness, I take that as a great compliment. All right, what's happening now?
Now I'm just looking at it, moving some things around, seeing how the corners on the ears feel. I really love them. I really love how the texture on the top feels. And typically I get to this point of the haircut and I know that this is like the corniest thing ever. But whatever hair speaks to me, I will go in and move it around. Exactly.
What about me?
Which, that's what the hairs sound like in my mind.
Yeah.
So, yep. They each have to have their own home, So that's what I'm doing right now. Give it a good...
All right, we have a good question coming in from Taylor Kyle. What consultation questions do you like to ask to get a feel for the type of style they would like and to fit their personality? So what kind of questions do you ask?
Okay, so typically right off the bat, I ask them what they do for a living. The second question, what do you do for fun? I feel like those are two really important and often really different things. The third question, I asked them, talk to me about your hair history. What do you do? Do you typically get it cut once a year? Do you get it cut every 6 weeks? Are you someone who is there every 3 weeks, ready to go with a haircut? I think those 3 things are kind of the core for everything, and then we move into more of the personality. You know, what do they like to wear? What kind of music do they like? I feel like all of those things are often neglected because you are looking for suitability in the sense of a face shape, and I think that that is important, but it's all about confidence. You know, someone with a really fun haircut, it could be, you know, maybe not the most flattering thing on their face, but the way that they are confident in loving it and wearing it, that's going to exude over any properly shaped haircut.
Right, it's not in the textbook, like she's got a diamond-shaped face, so she has to have this haircut.
Yeah.
You're going beyond that, and you're saying, I'm going to bring out this person's individuality
100%.
and make them feel cool,
Exactly.
regardless of what the textbook says.
Yep.
There was another great question that came in from Alexandra. I forget her last name, but I thought it was really pertinent because she says she's a new hairdresser.
Okay.
And she wonders what advice you have for her. And I think this is pertinent because I think a lot of people will be surprised to learn how long Emily's been doing hair. How long have you been doing hair?
8 years.
8 years. So, you know, for a lot of us old folks, that seems like a pretty short amount of time to be doing hair, but you've accomplished a lot. So I think you'd be a great person to give advice to a youngster, young in the craft. So what's your best advice?
I feel like I have a lot of decent advice. I would say, in terms of best advice, you have to, which is the thing that I ironically struggle the most with, you have to listen to your gut intuition, okay? You have to trust your gut when you're learning something. You know, if you feel like you are in a work environment, you know, that you're like, I don't really know if these are my kind of people. You know, it took me all of beauty school and all of hair school to even find a salon that I felt really included in. And I feel like that was really frustrating because I wanted to quit hair. You know, I didn't want to do it. I was like, I'm just gonna go to college and this is gonna, you know, pay my way through college, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say trusting your gut intuition is a really huge thing. And also, this industry is really hard. You know, it's a really tough thing, especially when you care so much about doing something. So just be prepared. You know, it's not.
What were
always
some of the
breezy.
hard things? Like what, you know,
Thanks for
like
tuning in, Gloria.
what did you find that was hard? Like what sticks out as the most difficult thing in the early part of your career?
I think not taking it seriously. Like I definitely.
Well, that's your fault.
That is my fault. Which is real. I think finding yourself is really hard, you know. And I know that that also sounds corny as all hell. But if you are in a headspace where, you know, I thought I was gonna come out of school and I'm gonna blaze my way through, and you know, I was the razor haircutting queen in school, so I'm gonna do that in life. And you know, I got fired from my first assisting job. Like I was late all the time, calling out sick. You know, like there were definitely times that I was, you know, had to really sit down and think about what I wanted to do and why I wanted to do it. So I
Well,
would
it's interesting now because you'll be in the position where
Yeah.
it'll happen.
Totally
You'll get
will.
someone in an interview and you'll think, oh, this person's super cool,
Yep.
and they'll really disappoint you.
Yep.
Yeah, so that'll be an
It's
interesting.
hard. Psychologically, it's a lot harder than the school gives you credit for.
Yep.
They do not train you for that.
All right, we got some other questions coming in from Patty.
Christopher Sanchez says, for stylists that are starting out and want to be in a position you are as a recognized stylist, what steps should they take?
Oh man. Lots of work, lots of really hard work, never stop working, always have goals and visions, always work towards the next thing, always be thinking about your next step, and surround yourself with people who support you. I would say that those are...
That's it in a nutshell. It was
That's it.
perfectly,
Yeah.
perfectly
I'm
worded.
like, I had a lot of time to think about this.
Nailed it. All right, so
When
what
do
do
you
we think?
feel it like broke for you? So from being, you know, just someone who was like doing their thing, trying to get good, to I read a post that you did today where last year you said you visited over 20 salons around the country in
Yep.
2016.
Yep.
20 airplane flights to visit different salons to do classes.
It's just crazy.
What was the tipping point? Can you remember a specific moment where you felt like, wow, I'm going from being the local hairdresser who's learning to someone who's out there in the world?
I think I know, again, that I keep saying that sounds corny because it's all true, but every time that something happens and I'm like, okay, that was a goal, that's every single time I'm like, okay, what's the next goal? So, and it's not that I'm not satisfied or happy with the things that I've done or the things that I've learned, it's just that I feel like there's, you know, while I'm young, there's a lot of things that I wanted to do and I wanted to establish so that I can, learn from those things and then help other people learn those things.
So you set a bunch of goals for yourself,
Yep.
and then as you started to accomplish them, you knew like it was happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can feel it. You can kind of feel when that
Do you
happens.
remember what any of those specific goals were? Were you like, wow, if I could get someone to pay for me to come to their salon to do a class, like that would be like a goal. Like,
That was definitely
was
a
that a
goal.
goal? Do you remember the first time someone did that? Paid to bring you in to do a class?
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think it happened so quickly, and I feel like I really wanted to, I didn't want to take anything for granted, so I try to like really sit down and look back at everything and take it all into consideration. But I think teach-in was a really huge personal goal for me, and it wasn't necessarily teach-in itself, but teaching with other hairstylists that I respect, because that's terrifying as hell when you're like,
So that
oh, I
was,
have to get in front of all of you and
last
do
year-
a perfect haircut.
Yeah.
Oh my God, and that was a big
Last
goal,
year
too.
at IBS New York, we
Yep.
had Emily, Edna Lugo, join Tracy Sakasitz on stage.
Oh yeah, I
Tracy
freaked out. I
T-
cried when I found out that I was going to cut hair with Tracy.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's, oh,
I was like,
glad
oh
we
yeah,
could do that
Steven
for ya.
can remember, he was there.
That's awesome. Yeah, we just thought it would be a great thing to have someone who, Tracy, who's like from my generation, who's accomplished so much,
Yep.
to kind of be like a mentor to some, young female hairdressers that are pushing the envelope. And I'm glad that that was a good moment for you.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get back to the haircut. We could chat all day, but tell us what's happening now and where we're
I
at.
feel like I'm mostly done with it, so I'm just kind of,
Sometimes you gotta know when to
sometimes I'm
stop.
like just over here picking up pieces and moving them around. I really love how it looks when it's all kind of tucked on top of Laura's head here, but I also love
You can wear it textured
so
or
cute,
super
shaking it
flat.
all
It's
out.
re-versatile.
It's
Exactly, re-versatile. Moving it side to side, the color looks so cool.
Let's get these little hairs off.
Yep.
Little hairspray. Can we take the cape off?
Yep.
All right. Got something on underneath?
Oh yeah, yeah.
You always gotta check.
You'll find out.
It'll happen.
Hello, Facebook.
Like, I will tell you right now. Alright, close your little eyes. Here, I'll spin you around too so everybody else can see it.
Awesome. So a little bit of hairspray. What are you working with hairspray wise there?
Oh man, we have the Davinis Your Hair Assistant line, and it's awesome. So this is the Definition Mist, which is a polish and separation spray.
That's a cool one. I've tried that
This
before.
one is like crack.
Yeah.
We're like, everything gets polished and separated.
Yeah.
But it's really great for haircuts like this because it smooths, but it also helps get in there and really work with any softness that's going on.
So, here in the salon, you work with a few different product lines.
Yes, we
Yeah.
have
How did you choose? Again, for people that are out there starting, it's a big part
It
of
is
the
a huge
identity of the
part.
salon. I remember you calling me and asking me about different things. And
Totally.
so how did you end up on what you chose, and what did you end up choosing?
I feel like it boiled down to kind of like the motto and what each company really stood for. I didn't want to have a gigantic brand. I didn't want to have, nothing against like a bigger brand, but I didn't really want like an R&Co or, anything that was like so massive. I wanted to work really condensed because I felt that that was really important, especially to having like a smaller staff. So Reverie sent me products that I tested out and fell in love with immediately. The packaging, it's a luxury line. It's really wonderful for oil and recovery, which is all the really great things that clients use. And then the Hair Assistant line was obviously
So that's this
perfect.
one. This is the Davina stuff.
It's perfect.
This
yeah.
was all designed by Angelo Seminara.
I know, who we love here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Angelo's amazing. We got to spend a little time with him last year, and I think we're going to see a bit more of him this year. So
think
that's
so,
exciting. Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. It's been a really great night for us here in Philadelphia with all these great hairdressers. I'll see you soon.